Here with me now is South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, first, my condolences to you. Your reaction as well to this. I saw you posted on X. South Carolina lost a giant.
Yes, Senator Lindsey Graham was a legend here in the great state of South Carolina. I have to tell you this morning, all of us are stunned. We are shocked. This came out of nowhere. No one was expecting this. And I've refielded hundreds of calls and hundreds of texts and everything this morning. Everyone's just truly in shock. And he was a giant, whether you liked him or not. When he walked into that room, he was ready to fight. The gloves were off, and he loved America, and he loved South Carolina.
This is a man, to your point, whether you liked him or not, you and him, didn't always agree, especially when it came to foreign policy as well.
Yeah. No, we didn't always agree, but he had my back when I needed it, and I've had his. I mean, I watched him in that spirit of the fight when Justice Kavanaugh was getting confirmed by the Senate. He walked into that room and defended Kavanaugh when he was under an ambush. And that's the kind of fire and fighting spirit that is well known in Lindsey Graham. That'll be his lore, his legacy for an eternity. And that's the fighting spirit of South Carolina. I love our state. We're always sort of thrown into the, political fights, and this will be one in the special to replace him. But I don't think he's replaceable. There was no one quite like him, and the president adored him. He fought for President Trump when it mattered, when it counted, and they became very close over the last couple of years, and he had his back in some of those really tough battles when the president needed him the most.
Speaking of President Trump, just moments ago, he reacted to the loss of Lindsey Graham. Let's listen.
I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually. It's amazing.
President Trump and Lindsey Graham were, very close allies. They were confidants. They were known for talking to each other on the phone a lot, going to play golf together. How much of a loss is this for President Trump?
They played a lot of golf together. They seemed very close. And, the president has been in some pretty tough fights, and Lindsey Graham has had his back in recent years and overwhelmingly, had the president's support. And Lindsey Graham, the one thing I think people will remember, regardless of whether you agreed with him or not, was that he was a fighter, and no one quite fought as hard as he did, regardless of the issue. He really knew how to take it to the left and take it to Democrats in those Senate hearings. He was chairman of the Budget Committee. He had an extremely important role to carry the Trump agenda in the Senate, and he worked very hard to do that. And so I echo President Trump's sentiments. We're all in shock today. No one was expecting this. I expected him to be in the Senate like Strom Thurmond until he was close to 100, because that man loved his country and he loved his state.
He was supposed to be on the Sunday shows today. I mean, we just saw him in Ukraine a couple of days ago to just really underscore the shock of this news overnight. As we talk about his foreign policy, his stances on foreign policy, the legacy that he will have when it comes to foreign policy, how much of a loss is it to lose a voice like Lindsey Graham's?
Well, look, he was one of the staunchest supporters of Christians and Jews in the Senate, particularly in the era of terrorism. He was feverishly against global terrorism, and that's one of the things he'll be remembered for. The other thing is that he served his country. He was in uniform. He served our nation's military, not just in the Senate, but in the Guard. And so he really lived that legacy. And again, whether you agreed with his stance on foreign policy or not, no one can disagree. He was an influence. He was someone that mattered, and his policies mattered almost more than anybody on foreign policy in the Senate.
South Carolina officials as well have said it's not just about what Lindsey Graham did when it came to foreign policy, but also what he did domestically and for his home state of South Carolina.
Yes, the amount of infrastructure that he brought to our home state. If I needed money for a bridge or money for dredging along the coast, Lindsey Graham, one of the things he was golden at was always being there to bring some of those grants home, those resources home. South Carolina is the fastest growing state in the country. And without those resources, we would be absolutely nowhere. And everyone in our delegation, regardless of where you represented, if you needed something, Lindsey Graham would actually pick up the phone. He would call you back, ask you what you needed, and then would go and and get it for you. And I've never quite seen anything quite like it. And he was known for that. He was known for remembering who you were. He was known for being there when you needed something or someone. He was always there for the people of South Carolina. And you know, the tragic story that all of us know here in our home state, that when his parents died, he adopted his sister. You know, he had a very loving family, and my heart and thoughts and prayers are with his family and with his staff right now, who I know are in shock.
Quickly, because I'm unfortunately running out of time here, Congresswoman, but as we look towards next steps, we know South Carolina's governor will now need to pick a temporary replacement. Will you be lobbying for your name to be on that list?
He will pick a temporary replacement. I am told that's already been decided in the early hours of this morning. And the next step would then be a special election, which I believe in the next 10 days, the filing period would start. And there would be an August 11th, I believe, special election for that seat for the full term. That would be for November.
Do you know who he's picked?
I've heard it's Congressman Joe Wilson, but I think that the media reports are still verifying that. He's the father of the next governor of South Carolina. He is the senior leader of our delegation, having the most seniority of all of us in Congress.
Okay. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Still